My name is Marie Bloom. I was 31 years old when my family decided I was optional. The text came in at 10:42 p.m. on a Thursday night that had been perfectly ordinary up until that point. I was curled into the corner of my couch, legs tucked under me, a mug of chamomile tea cooling on the coffee table. My laptop was open, inbox glowing softly in the dim light of my living room. I'd been scrolling through confirmation emails. Venue secured, caterer confirmed, final guest count approved. Everything was locked in for my mom's retirement party, the one I'd been planning quietly, efficiently, without asking for praise. That was always my role. If something needed to be done, I did it. If money was needed, I found it. If stress could be absorbed by someone else so the family stayed calm, it was usually me. I didn't realize that same reliability made me disposable. My phone vibrated once. I glanced down, expecting a work notification or one of those spam texts pretending to be a delivery service. Instead, I saw my sister's name. Natalie. One message. Just 6 words. Don't come to mom's retirement party. I frowned, reread it, then laughed under my breath. An automatic reaction, like my body refusing to accept what my eyes were seeing. Natalie had always been dramatic. She liked control. She liked to test boundaries and then act shocked when someone pushed back. So I waited. Sure enough, another message appeared almost immediately. She doesn't want you there. The room went very quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The kind where your ears ring and your thoughts slow down, like your brain is bracing for impact. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering uselessly over the keyboard. There had to be context, a misunderstanding. Maybe Mom had said something in passing, and Natalie, as usual, had decided to interpret it in the most extreme way possible. I opened the thread again, and that's when I saw it. A small, gray, thumbs-up icon beneath Natalie's message. From my dad. I didn't move for a long time. My dad had always called himself neutral, the peacemaker, the one who hated conflict and believed silence counted as wisdom. But that little thumbs up, lazy, casual, irreversible, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't Natalie acting alone. This was a decision. I placed my phone face down on the coffee table like it might bite me. My stomach started doing that slow, sick roll, heat crawling up my chest. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I was calculating, because I knew exactly what that party cost. The venue invoice alone was $3,800. I'd paid it 3 weeks earlier without telling anyone, because if you announce generosity in my family, it turns into expectation. The caterer, an upscale farm-to-table place my mom loved, another $2,000. A jazz trio, custom linen invitations, a decorator who specialized in those ridiculous floral walls people pose in front of, and the slideshow. God, the slideshow. Nearly 300 scanned photos, some pulled from old albums I'd rescued from the garage years ago. There was one image the slideshow guy had pointed out when he sent me the draft. My mom dancing in the kitchen. With me. I was 6, missing one front tooth, laughing so hard my head was thrown back. Not Natalie. Me. I picked up my phone again. I didn't ask why. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't defend myself. I typed one word. Cool. Then I opened my email and started canceling. Venue. Canceled. Deposit forfeited. Catering. Canceled. Ingredients already purchased. Didn't matter. Cake. 4 tiers. Custom frosting. Gone. Banned. Canceled. Refunded in full. The pianist even said, "You sound really calm." He had no idea how much effort it took not to throw my phone across the room. By the time I closed my laptop, my hands were steady. My heart was not. The next day passed in silence. No apology from Natalie. No call from my mom. No awkward "let's talk" from my dad. Nothing. And that silence confirmed what the texts had started. They truly believed they could remove me from the picture and still enjoy everything I provided. 4 days later, my phone lit up with Natalie's voicemail. She was crying, loud, dramatic, gasping for air like she was auditioning for sympathy. She never said she was sorry, not once. She just complained about how the venue wouldn't rebook, how the caterer stopped responding, how I'd overreacted. A few hours after that, my mom texted, all caps, no punctuation. Why would you do this? No greeting, no concern, just rage. And that's when the truth finally settled in. They weren't upset that I wouldn't be at the party. They were upset because the party couldn't exist without me. They had spent years minimizing me, calling me too sensitive, too quiet, too dramatic when I finally spoke up, until they forgot how much weight I carried. So I let go. And that was only the first crack. The day of my mom's retirement party arrived like a date on a calendar no one wanted to acknowledge. I woke up that morning with the strange calm that comes after you've already lost something. There was no panic, no second guessing, just a hollow quiet, like the air after a storm has passed and taken everything with it. I didn't go anywhere near my parents' house. Instead, I drove across town to a small independent bookstore I'd loved since college. I ordered a latte I didn't really want and sat by the window, pretending to read while watching people pass by with purpose. Families, couples, strangers who all seemed to belong somewhere. My phone buzzed every few minutes on the table beside me. I didn't look. I already knew what I'd find. Natalie's name, my mom's name, maybe even my dad's, finally working up the nerve to call, now that consequences had arrived. I let every vibration die on its own. Late that afternoon, a text came through from my cousin Rachel. No words, just a photo. I stared at it longer than I expected to. A crooked happy retirement banner drooped across my parents' garage door, the letters sagging like they'd given up halfway through. Plastic folding chairs filled the driveway, some empty, some occupied by people who looked confused more than celebratory. Someone had taped a foam board to the wall with "You'll be missed," written in glitter marker that was already peeling off in the heat. My mom stood in the middle, smiling too hard. Natalie was next to her, holding a plate of grocery store cupcakes like it was proof she'd tried. Her eyes looked wild, darting just past the camera. She didn't look proud. She looked panicked. Half the guests I'd personally RSVP'd with weren't there. Most of them probably assumed the party had been canceled entirely. I locked my phone and slid it into my bag. I let them have their embarrassment. That night, the voicemail started. Natalie left the first one, her voice shaking with anger instead of tears. She accused me of humiliating the family, said I'd ruined Mom's big moment out of spite. Claimed I was jealous because she and Mom had finally grown closer. That one made me laugh out loud. Natalie had always been close to Mom. Growing up, she was the favorite, the loud one, the charming one, the daughter who could do no wrong. If she broke something, it was an accident. If I did, it was a character flaw. I remembered being 13 and asking if we could switch bedrooms because hers was bigger and I needed space for schoolwork. Mom had sighed and told me not to cause tension. Natalie had smirked for weeks afterward. So when Natalie called me manipulative for pulling out of a party I'd been kicked out of, something inside me finally stopped trying to make sense of it. I didn't respond. Instead, I emailed the slideshow designer. I told him to delete everything. Every scanned photo, every backup file, the final edit, the flash drive he'd mailed to my parents but hadn't yet delivered. He wrote back asking if I was sure. I told him yes. I didn't want my childhood memories playing on a loop for people who had decided I didn't belong. The next day, my dad called. He never called. His voice sounded tired, worn down, like he'd already decided this was my fault before dialing. He said it hadn't been meant to go like that Natalie had been emotional, that he was just trying to keep the peace. I asked him one question. Did you mean it when you liked that text? There was a long silence on the line. I could hear him breathing. Then he said, I thought it would be better if you didn't come. That was it. That was the moment I understood how deeply the roles had been set. Natalie could explode, and it would be called passion. I could quietly withdraw, and it would be called cruelty. I told him I needed space. He said nothing. A week later, Natalie texted like nothing had happened. She said there was a family dinner on Sunday, and that I should stop acting like a child. I blocked her, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. A few days after that, I had a work trip scheduled, 3 nights out of town. Against my better judgment, I asked my parents if they could watch my dog, Bentley. They'd watched him before. He loved their yard, loved chasing birds along the fence line. I told myself it was temporary, that I'd pick him up Saturday afternoon and leave without drama. When I pulled into their driveway, leash in hand, the house was quiet. No barking, no Bentley pressing his nose to the window like he always did. I knocked, waited. Finally, my mom opened the door. Bentley wasn't with her. He's gone, she said. For a second, I thought she meant he'd gotten out, that the gate had been left open, that something terrible had happened. Then she added, without meeting my eyes, your sister sold him. Sold him. The word didn't make sense in my head. It just floated there, useless and wrong. Something inside me went completely still. Whatever version of me they were used to dealing with didn't exist anymore. I stepped past my mother and into the house. And I didn't stop myself. I didn't announce myself when I walked into the house. I didn't need to. The silence inside felt thick, almost sticky, like the walls themselves were waiting to see what I'd do. Every step I took echoed louder than it should have, each one stirring up memories I'd spent years packing away and labeling not worth it. My mom followed me in, her arms already crossed. "Marie," she said, using that tone she reserved for when she wanted to sound reasonable while saying something unforgivable. "Your sister needed the money." I stopped in the hallway. "Bentley wasn't hers," I said. She sighed, exasperated, like I was the one being difficult. "You're clinging to things. He'll be happier with a family that has a yard, kids, structure." I turned and looked at her then. Really looked. She wasn't apologetic. She wasn't scared. She'd already justified it to herself. I didn't answer. I walked past her. Natalie's things were exactly where she'd left them. Her purse slung over the back of a chair like she still belonged there. Makeup spread across the dresser in the guest room. Laundry shoved half-heartedly under the bed. I stood there for a moment, staring at the space she occupied so effortlessly. Then something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. Cleanly. I grabbed the laundry basket and dumped it out onto the floor. Shirts, sweaters, jeans, clothes she bragged about finding on sale, clothes my mom had complimented endlessly. I started ripping. Fabric tore under my hands, the sound sharp and satisfying. Buttons popped, seams split. I knocked over the vanity, sending bottles clattering across the floor. One shattered near my feet. I didn't flinch. I moved through the house like a storm that had been building for decades. The hallway photos came next. Mom had always lined them up perfectly. Family vacations, birthdays, smiling faces that told a very selective story. I swept my arm across them, one by one. Glass exploded against tile. The sound felt like oxygen. In the storage room, I knocked shelves down. Boxes crashed open, ornaments cracked. My dad's old record player tipped over, records bending as they hit the floor. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just kept moving. By the time I reached the kitchen, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. I dumped drawers onto the floor, silverware scattered, chairs slammed against tile. That's when my dad came in from the backyard. He froze. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask why. He pulled out his phone and called the police. When the officers arrived, my parents rushed to them first. They pointed at me, talking over each other, how I'd lost control, how I'd always caused drama, how I'd ruined everything again. I was sitting on the living room floor, breathing hard, staring at a broken lamp. An officer asked what had happened. Before I could speak, my mom launched into it, how Natalie was responsible, how she did what was best for everyone, how I needed to calm down and accept reality. I looked up and said one sentence. "They sold my dog without my permission." Everything stopped. The officers asked who sold him. My mom hesitated. They asked where Natalie was. "She's on her way," my dad said. 20 minutes later, Natalie walked in, froze when she saw the police, then tried to smile like this was all a misunderstanding. "Did you sell the dog?" an officer asked. "Yes," Natalie said, proud. "I found him a better home." The officers exchanged a look. Then they put her in handcuffs. My parents exploded, yelling, blocking, insisting it was a family matter. The officers didn't care. At the station, I showed proof Bentley was mine. Adoption papers, vet records, chip registration. They told me he'd been sold for $300 through an app. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I asked for the night. The next morning, I got the call. Bentley had been recovered. When I walked into the station, he ran straight into my arms, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. I buried my face in his fur and felt something inside me finally unclench. I pressed charges. That night, my mom left a voicemail, calm at first, then screaming, saying I'd gone too far, that I was airing family business. Then she said, "If you don't drop this, you're not part of this family anymore." I deleted it. The next morning, I changed my locks, blocked their numbers, updated every emergency contact. Natalie paid restitution through lawyers. Still no apology. Bentley slept with his head on my leg that night. For the first time in years, I felt peace. They had drawn the line years ago. I had just finally stopped crossing it.